session is driving change, whether it's utilising dead spaces, creating off-manifest seating or adding value to premium spaces. Hear from this super panel of what you can do, what concepts they've tried, innovations, technologies, etc. So I'm delighted to welcome to the stage, we've got Caroline James, who's General Manager at Utilita Arena Newcastle. We've got Lisa Turton, Head of Premium Sales at First Direct Arena Leeds. Harry Ridley, Head of Technology, built by Levy. James Bradshaw, Director at JBC Projects. And our moderator for the day is Bethany Parr, who is currently Event Project Manager, Formula E, but she's also one of my amazing SVBLIVE helpers as well. Thanks. Over to you.
Hello, hello. Cool. Right, guys, we'll get started. So yeah, thank you for coming, and we're on our last panel of the day, and what a panel. Like, the knowledge we've got along this lineup, which they're all going to tell you all about, is just incredible. So let's start off. I'll just do a quick introduction. So just on my left here, we've got Caroline, who is the General Manager of Utilita. We've got Harry, Head of Technology at Levy. We've got James Bradshaw, Founder and Principal and Consultant of JBC. And we've got Lisa, who's Head of Premium Sales at First Direct Leeds. So we'll get started. So James, off-manifest seating projects, what role does that play in guest journey and changing the perceptions of less desirable seating and changing them into like coveted seating areas?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing with any new product that you're trying to create is taking that holistic view of the guest's entire experience from start to finish. And there was a bit of talk about this yesterday with where does that guest journey start? Is it the point that you're buying the ticket? Is it the moment you're approaching the venue? It's all of that, and you know, there's many different answers to that. But I think when you're looking at putting in one of these products, it's quite easy in a lot of ways to say, oh, we could stick a couple of seats in there. But actually, you've got to think of all of the parts together. And when we were working on the AO Arena redevelopment in Manchester, John touched on this in his presentation earlier from 2020. We put it in a product called the Terrace, which was copying one of the ideas that Lisa had done previously. And we couldn't just throw the seats in there and just leave it at that. So John worked really closely with us in coming up with how we create that experience and how we create that journey to go from the brand new VIP entrance that we'd built, which just so happened to have a lift core that went all the way to bang in the middle of where we were putting in these 117 new seats. So great, we can use that VIP entrance. So you're getting the rope and post effect, which is a really sort of coveted thing for all customers going to it. And then as you get up to that experience, it's got its own brand, it's got its own identity. You're in and amongst the atmosphere of general admission, but you're also slightly removed from general admission. You've then got, for me, I know we talked a lot about frictionless transactions here and going through turnstiles to pick up a beer and then go out. My idea of frictionless service is being sat in your seat and someone bringing you a drink, and that's been the biggest feedback that Vicky's had from customers is that they absolutely love that, and everyone wants to upgrade to that seat because they can see people sat behind them in a worse seat getting all of these little added benefits. So it's not just the seat, and actually the seat's a worse view than the seat in front of them. It's all of those sort of different experiences which build it up and create that premium product. And they're not expensive things to do. None of those things cost money. It's all just operational touches and piggybacking on work that we were doing elsewhere.
No, 100%, and I think it's important that it's not just about the view, it's about the whole experience from that start to finish, that whole customer journey, that these little areas can really benefit from that splash of money. Like you say, it might not be a lot, but it's really pushing that seat to make it more premium for these people. So Lisa, I don't know if you want to go into some of the projects that you have covered in Leeds and how that's impacted your customers.
Yeah, so what we did in just coming out of the pandemic in 2021, we identified some sort of dead space at the back of our second tier seating blocks. People who sat on that back row just used to stand behind the seats and have a lovely time for no extra fees. The space is probably about just over a metre wide, so it's quite a narrow space. So we thought there's a real opportunity there to put in some high stools, again, against a bar, service bar for food and drink. So we sort of had this wacky concept. Can we do it? Can't we do it? Did a business case. We approached John from 2020, who brought the idea to life, give it its own brand identity, give it a colour scheme. It just sort of really popped. So we put that in at the end of 2022, and it's just sort of transformed our premium products and just really enhanced what we've got as a venue. Like James said, they're not the best seats in the house, but they're the only seats in the house where you can click a QR code and get a drink brought to your seat. You don't have to shuffle past people to go to the bathroom. You can just get up. If it's a lively show, you can stand behind your stool and have a dance and you're not impacting anyone's view. So it's proved a really successful model. It gave us 46 off-manifest seats, so we get the whole revenue back from those seats as well as the F&B uplift from those guests. Again, they get their own VIP entrance, they get access to private bathrooms, so we just threw on those little bits. But it really is a level entry premium product.
Amazing. So you touched on there that Leeds was a real dead space. So Harry, it's going into dead spaces. Where are these projects going, and like what sort of projects has Levy been working on to utilise these dead spaces?
So finally, it's up to me with the technology, so it's good. Dead spaces is just, people think that there's a challenge, it's more of an opportunity. What can we leverage in those dead spaces? So as part of Levy, we've launched quite a lot of innovative solutions within Aston Villa as an example, with Dawnvale and Birmingham City, again, just sort of visualising what we can do with this dead space. So great example, Birmingham City, we smashed out underneath the stands and we put in a whole new bar, a whole new experience there. Leveraging the tech, I think, is really important to make sure that we are adding in, automated beer walls, that sort of thing, to enhance that experience. But I think the higher you go up in hospitality, the less that you actually have the tech in your face. So when we plan out these spaces, when we enhance these premium areas, we actually have less tech or less tech that's visible, so it becomes more invisible, but enhancing that experience. So just going back to what James said earlier on, it's all about creating that experience from buying your tickets to going to the venue, to enjoying your time at the venue, to leaving, and how can we use the right technology. Within other spaces that we looked at in the O2, so the 93rd Club, and Club 101 that's just come out recently, we've really leveraged making sure that we made it really premium, but using the technology so when a customer is in there, they can get their food and beverage very quickly.
Lovely.
Can I jump in? Just because we are coming at it from a really unique kind of place. The Utilita arena has been around for 30 years. It's been a little underappreciated and underloved for 30 years. We're also headed into a move across to a new venue fairly shortly. So we're in that unique position where we can't make these big major changes. There's a couple of opportunities in our venue. We've got office space above our current lounges that we could and should, in theory, turn into hospitality spaces. But, you're talking 10 million kind of project to get access to it, to put lifts in, to update the actual building, because we're not compliant as such anymore. Should we do it? Yeah. But if we're only going to be there 5 years, we can't. So we're sort of looking on the other end of the scale, is that what can we do cheaply, very quickly, and achieve maximum growth in the shortest amount of time, which is because we're not going to be in our venue for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
And it's on that, with it, you're not going to be in that venue. How do we drive these changes now if we haven't got the money to spend on it? And is it that we have a fresh pair of eyes come in to look at this, to make those changes? Because people still want to come and enjoy themselves. They still want these premium experiences. But if the money's not there, how do you find your driving change in there?
Yeah, so I took over 2 years ago as the GM, and previously I was head of sales and marketing, which enveloped the premium. And the biggest change that we have implemented at the venue is empowering the staff, because actually those teams are in the spaces being used day in, day out. They see it, they operate in it, and there were some incredible ideas within that team of how those spaces could be used differently, except nobody had collaborated and discussed it with each other. And actually, we're working on a concept at the moment, and we've been running it for a year now, called the Concert Goer. And originally, it's a GA plus, really minimal kind of benefits, but it's what customers wanted. They didn't want to stand in a queue. They didn't want to stand in a queue at the bar when they got in. They wanted to feel a bit special, but they didn't want to pay £200 for the privilege. So we put a very simple uplift. They got a lanyard, they got access to a bar, and they got a drink on arrival. They got access through a door. And it was a bar that was a shared bar previously, with merch. It's a very random bar. Sometimes it was used for merch, sometimes it was used as a bar, depending. We whacked this uplift on it, and it put almost £500,000 worth of revenue into our bottom, into our P&L last year. And we now have developed a storage space which we'd nicked off our operations team, which at first they were slightly annoyed about. But then when we removed an ice plant equipment that was redundant, we've given them storage. F&B and Premium have got the bar, and all of a sudden that £500,000 will creep closer to the £1 million. Actually what we've spent is less than 30 grand, but only after we generated £500,000.
Yeah, and I think it goes to show really what you can do with that small amount of money, and what it goes back into your P&L, and what you've seen go back into your P&L. So I think going on from that is, with James, how you've seen with your company the growth of the VIP access, like you were saying earlier, the entrances, all the way down to like the luxurious materials that are used, and where the projects are going on the more higher end. What changes are you seeing on that element?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. We often now take inspiration outside of the industry and look at where people are doing things well elsewhere, and whether or not that's translatable to what we do. So I worked in theatres for a while. I ran the property portfolio for the Ambassador Theatre Group, and some of those venues are absolutely tiny. Some of them are, I think the smallest one's about 400 cap. All of the West End theatres in London, tiny, like loads of space issues. But you go into those, it's like, actually you can rejig the tiering in there and get some additional seats in there, etc., etc. Even though your leg room's terrible, you're still selling those for £300-400 some of those tickets. So why are they able to do something like that, and we're not doing that in arenas and stadia? And actually, when you look at some of the products that they've got, it's very easy to translate it in there. If you think most West End theatres are doing 8 shows a week, so those seats are getting absolutely battered, whereas an arena show is maybe doing 150 shows a year, so those seats aren't actually getting as battered as the theatre shows. So we looked at, with this product, the Terrace in Manchester, we came up with a seating solution that was a bar stool height, but a theatre chair. So you had the luxurious velvet, you had the comfy padding in it, you had timber back and front, which is very rare to find timber in an arena environment, metal chairs, and then you could stand up and they'd flip up, and they'd have a little footrest that flips up as well. So you can flip that between you're sitting down watching the show or you're stood up watching the show. You've got your little ledge in front of you, just a Korean ledge, nothing too complicated, and then you're ordering your drinks and you've got that there. So if you're watching Pete Tong and you want to have a dance, you can have a dance on that. If you're watching Andrea Bocelli and you want to have a sit down, you can have a sit down on there. So it's luxurious and flexible in both of those ways. And that was a exact same specification as a bar stool type seat in the Piccadilly Theatre in the West End. And it was just a case, I think, the guy from SSE Belfast was saying it yesterday, just go around to other venues and other places and steal ideas. And not all of those ideas are going to work in your venue, but I think you've got to be brave to try those ideas and see whether or not they do work.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's why we all come here, right? It's that networking piece that allows you to go and visit other stadiums and go and have a look at what other people are doing. Like, there's no stealing ideas here. It's let's work together. We're all putting on a show for people. Like, we want them to have the best time that they can. So I think it's, like you say, you was working in theatre, but theatre is so very different to the kind of events that you kind of get in an arena. You can go from having a sport event to a music event, and you kind of say the demographic. So I think, Lisa, it's what have you seen with these premium spaces, the demographic of the people that are coming, and like how are you tiering these kind of experiences?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before we started these new experiences and creating sort of new off-manifest products, we probably had about 6 different package options. They were very samey. It was executive box for a year for 16 people, which was really aimed at corporates. It was a 3-course fine dine meal with a ticket, and we thought we really need to diversify our offering. We need to add to those products. I think somebody mentioned yesterday you should be reviewing those packages every year. The way people are buying has changed. People want different things. So we added the gallery, which became a level entry premium, which created us a new tier aimed at people who sort of had that bit extra to spend, wanted to test the water into a premium journey. Also, at the same time, we took 3 of our boxes and we knocked them through into one large sort of super suite called the Mixer. Again, we worked with 2020 on that, and that became our highest end premium product. It's 40 seats. The material on the seat is really luxurious, velvet. It's in-seat service. It's all inclusive, so all your food, all your drink, all night long. And it's just a great way to spend an evening. You can feel part of the experience being in a private space, but you're also in a socialising environment with 40 other people who are like-minded like yourself. So we've really sort of enhanced our products and appealing to every single person and every single demographic.
Yeah, and I think that's it. There's so many different people coming to these kind of events, and I think that's where we go into the technology side of it, Harry, and like how we look at utilising the technology. But where does it sit? There was such a range of people. How does technology sit in these projects?
I think it's difficult. I think, as I said before, the higher you go up in hospitality, the less tech you have, the less that it's visible. Where we've launched, say, frictionless at the O2, and we've got that customer journey down to the minimum, that doesn't work in your highest end hospitality, and it potentially could work if we tweak it, if we optimize it a little bit. So just going over to the US for a moment, in the Intuit Dome that we run as Levy US, where the whole stadium is frictionless, we're looking at how do we actually still have that personal touch. We've removed a lot of labour, and we've really enhanced the experience. And in these new spaces, we can look at how do we make the technology pretty much invisible, still have that personal touch, but you don't have to transact. So let's just say that you download your O2 apps, let's just say, and you go into this frictionless space. You could still have a cocktail. You could still have a cocktail bar. You come up, order your cocktail, pick it up, order to your bill. You go this is where it's really important to think outside the box a little bit when we're looking at the layouts, the designs of these areas, where we can automate and we can enhance, so putting in cocktail walls, spirit mixer walls, that sort of thing. We can make the customer experience really, really good, because you're not queuing up, you're not wasting your time getting your phone out of your pocket, tapping your card. So I really see every new space that we're looking at, and when we're reimagining other spaces, we always need to think, I'm always thinking tech first, but we always got to think about what's the right tech for those areas. And I think it's just super exciting, because we're actually thinking about that customer journey now, rather than let's just go and change that space into a more premium space and charge people more money. It's about the whole experience. It's very, very difficult to add more seats into stadiums. It's very hard to change the view of a seat, but we can change the rest of that customer experience.
Yeah, lovely. So I'll come to you first, Caroline, but I'd like to open this question up to the panel a bit. But how do we balance operational delivery versus like kind of the commercial expectations that are set by companies, set by people coming to the events?
Carefully, I think, is the key. And for us, definitely, it's about getting everybody engaged with what you're trying to achieve and why from the beginning. We see that a lot in Newcastle, and I'm sure in other venues, but definitely with us and our team, is that if you don't engage all the departments in it from the beginning, you're setting yourself up for problems that you can't see operationally, because that's what our operations team are there to kind of enhance and help and support. But if you're only thinking about the end goal, you're going to miss the journey, and that is true not just for the fan who's bought the experience, but for your team as well. And if your team are wandering around on the back foot because they're retro, having to make a customer journey work or a delivery work, that experience and delivery is going to be subpar, I think. And so if they're all excited and engaged and on the journey with you from the start, the delivery at the end is going to be what you want it to be.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think the way that I've always approached projects, they're always, all of the projects I get involved in are to add commercial value, but it's always a problem for an operational venue to have construction work taking place. And the old adage of the show must go on, that's the most important thing, is keeping everything operationally ticking over. And so you can do all of these things. I mean, we did a £60 million renovation of AO Arena. I think the longest we were closed for was a 6-week dark period over the summer. All of these things can happen behind the scenes if they need to. Things can happen during the day, and then you clean up before the show starts, and those sort of things. But I think in order to get to that point, you need to have a team around you, an external team around you, that understand what your internal operational teams are going through. So I find the procurement of the contractor and the procurement process is so important. And so I've worked with Stephen at Co-Studio on tons of projects over the years, and we know when we're sat down and we're putting together a list of contractors, all of the stuff that Dawnvale was saying yesterday, we're working with Portview on Wembley. You're getting contractors that know how this game is played, and it's sometimes you might have to be doing a 24-hour shift, and then you're walking away from site for 4 days because you've got a show in that means you can't do anything. And so having to get that flexibility through the procurement process and through negotiating, it gets a bit granular and boring for people, but negotiating the JCT contracts and putting in dark day provisions in the contracts, all of those little things to protect the fact that so that the ops team can just crack on, carry on, and we're just there in the background making it work.
It doesn't always go well. We're in the middle of a much smaller project than the 60 million, and we're working in between shows because we can't close. And unfortunately, with a 30-year-old building, who whose electrics and plumbing haven't been looked at for a while. Poor Niall Horan in the middle of his show trying to have a shower, and there's an air bubble in our water system and it all went off, and him having to swap between floors to find a shower that works. But it's having an ops team who are engaged in the project who are then able to say, Niall, I'm sorry, you can see the greater good, you can see what's coming, please bear with us in the meantime. And he was fortunately very understanding about it.
Just from a tech point of view, it's picking those right strategic partners that have acumen, that understand the whole process. Really, really important that you have those regular face-to-face meetings at the venue, understand any of the challenges to work through it. Super important to have a dedicated team. And then when everything's launched, you've got your lovely new lounge, potentially frictionless, potentially not. You then need a dedicated, and I'll call them ops champions. So you have someone that's dedicated to make sure that everything works. Because there's different ways of working. When we've got an automated multi-dispense unit like from Qualflow, that's a different way of working behind the scenes to make sure that that customer experience is better. So training those new ways of working in is really important.
No, I think that's it. And I think we look at a lot of the venues across the country, they're all at very different stages in their life. We've got some really modern venues that are still being invested in, and then you've got these a lot older buildings that I think it's finding that time, finding the right people to work with who understand the operational needs of a company to be able to build this off-manifest seating in. And it's not just a quick fix, like it needs to be strategically planned out and how you're going to do it. And I don't know, Lisa, if you've got like any other projects that were done in Leeds that you can kind of give some insight into where you spent a bit more money on, or you've probably not spent as much money on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So as I mentioned, we've got the mixer, which again, people are not buying suites for 16 people. They have to struggle to try and fill 105 shows a year. So we came up with the concept of knocking 3 boxes through and making sort of a really high-end, luxurious area. And that was a significant sort of investment for our venue. We've also just completed this year, again, taking sort of the model that Caroline uses for the concert goer, is basically ring fencing an area on our GA concourse and putting in a mobile bar, putting in some poser tables, putting in some nice barriers, and kind of doing a upgrade area. So again, people avoiding queues, people can order an interval drink, and that was around 30,000 it cost us just for sort of the fixtures and fittings, and we got that back over 4 nights of Take That. So it was just a bit of a no-brainer, and now we're looking how can we really enhance that space even further. What other concourse spaces can we turn into sort of level entry premium spaces? Again, people are just willing to pay that little bit extra to avoid queuing, to have early access or easy access.
And I don't know if that's something that's, I think, has probably come out of COVID a bit more. I feel like people want that bit more of an experience. They want to make it worthwhile coming out. And I think this is where the premium experience, like whether it's just the lower level of it or the higher level, it's where people want to have that bit more of an experience. They want to get that little bit closer to the band, just to feel like they're part of something. And I think, like you said, little bits like furniture goes such a long way in places to build this kind of premium experience. But James, just on the other side of it, you've got the stakeholders involved into getting these projects up and running. So how do you find working with all these stakeholders across the venues?
Challenging. We had a phrase when I was at the O2 of who the customer is, and it's bands, brands and fans, and that's kind of your general starting point for thinking about end user stakeholders, and then you kind of work backwards from that. So yeah, your band is your artist performing, your promoter, your crew that are working on it, your brands, that's anything from your naming rights sponsors to your partners that are working in the venue, to all of the all of your food and beverage, all of that is in the brands, and then fans is the guests that are actually coming to the shows. You then go down another level as well, and then you've got your landlords potentially of the building. So for ASM, the majority of their venues, not Caroline's, but the majority of their venues, there's a landlord there and there's rent being paid. So you don't always have the flexibility to do whatever you want. And so you got to take them on the journey. You've then got your local teams, so you've got your operational teams, you've then got your head office. And then if US get involved as well, then there's them. So we had this challenge with Wembley Arena. So going way back to 2018, Declan's team from Populous did a master plan on behalf of the landlord to say, right, we could dramatically increase the capacity here. At the time, it was being run by AEG, and AEG wanted to protect the O2, so it didn't go anywhere. But now that it's ASM, it's a different story. A new landlord came in, purchased the building, very much with a view to wanting to do all of these works. So we had the challenge of, right, okay, well, we've still got a venue to run, and we still want to make the revenue from it. We want to do these works. How do we actually achieve doing these works? And we looked through all of those, and we thought, okay, well, we can do a initial first phase while we're open, which is putting some more off-manifest seats, adding to the manifest slightly, and then creating an access from a new VIP bar. Okay, but the problem is we've got to go through crew catering in order to do that. So that ruins crew catering. So immediately the promoter's pissed off because we're getting rid of the crew catering. Okay, so let's build a new crew catering in the loading bay, because there's plenty of space in the loading bay. But then the promoter's then pissed off again because you're taking space out of the loading bay. Okay, well, let's build a promoter lounge, basically like something between a high-end VIP lounge and a green room, because all of the promoters are based in London. They all come to the London show, so give them somewhere to relax. Okay, they're happy, brilliant. But then actually, is the guest going to be happy going into a space that our beverage partner is fitting out with a relatively limited budget? It's not quite the right feel, the right sort of high-end feel for the product that we're delivering. So I know we can improve things for that partner if we uplift that, if we add some capital into it and do up that lounge. So that slowly starts to build a brief of works that you can do, which are not perfect. You're not doing everything in there, but that's your kind of, right, we can get moving on it and we can get that first step going. And actually, all of those stakeholders are then on that journey together. They're all buying into it. They're all supporting, because everyone's getting something that works. The venue are still able to get their revenue. The landlord's still able to get their rent. But the landlord's seeing the change that they want to get from it. The promoter's happy. And then the promoter knows that the next stage is that the manifest is going to increase because you're putting more seats on it. And then also, just going back to the procurement piece, we've got Portview about to start on site to deliver this first phase. We also need to make sure we're going to have a contractor in there that's going to be able to deliver all of this in a very sensitive way. So normally, like on a normal development project, you just go in, you close the venue, you'd knock 10 bells out of it, and then you'd reopen it. Can't do that here. So it's always a slightly imperfect project to create the best solution for the stakeholder.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's very much a bit of a balancing act across all stakeholders, that you're going to have to make sure that everyone's well versed in what's going on. And I think, touching on what Caroline said, make sure operationally everyone understands the product from the start. Don't keep people in the dark about it, because otherwise it's not going to work, and they've got to be invested in what's going to change. So I think, and it's also with technology, Harry, I think, how does technology affect all these stakeholders in these projects?
It really touches everything. One good example is Aston Villa, one of our football clubs. We launched a terrace view there, which is sort of, not to go off topic a little bit, but I think there is now a bit of a blurring between GA plus and hospitality. I think people are now tightening their belts a little bit on what they want to spend. So that's kind of the market we were looking at hitting within Aston Villa. So we launched the terrace view and leveraged tech by adding in self-order screens, kitchen management screens, so you place your order, it pushes it to the bar and to the kitchen to make the customer journey as seamless as possible. And then just recently we launched the cells, which is pretty much a carbon copy of what we did at Terrace View, but we actually reduced the amount of tech we had there. We took a couple of learnings that we didn't actually need as much tech, sadly. But we do all of that because it gives the customer a better experience, and we can't change that with the seats. We can't change their seats, we can't add extra seats in, so it's about enhancing that area. But the reason why those two areas have worked really well is because we've actually given a bit of a narrative on it. So with Terrace View and the cells, used to be old prison cells at Aston Villa. So there's a whole narrative. We've taken all the fans on that journey with us, so they know that this space is basically made for them. So I suppose, to answer your question, technology impacts everything, or it could impact nothing. If we don't put the right technology in, then these spaces will fall flat. But if we put in, say, a frictionless area, which is where we're looking to go, is moving from bars to areas, then you're taking away all those really annoying touch points where you have to go and pay and all that good stuff. So I think that's where we're looking at the moment.
No, 100%. I think it's important to notice those touch points as well with technology. It is growing, and we are going to embrace some of these changes that we see. And I think it's important for these changes to happen because it does make places unique and really give something new to the customer. So before we start wrapping up, I'd like to just go along the panel, and I'd like you to just give me a project that has happened in the last year or so that you have really thought that they have created, like the off-manifest seating, and they've really added value. It doesn't have to be from your venue, it can be from somewhere else that you've seen, but something that's really stuck out for you. So we'll start with you, Caroline.
Yeah, so ours is in production, as it were, right now, and we are celebrating 30 years next year, and the strapline is live since '95. But we decided that we wanted to kind of tackle some of the grassroots artist issues that's happening in our industry. We're a big corporate arena. We deal with kind of the higher end, but we can't forget that there are people at the beginning of their career, and we want to be part of those journeys for artists. We want them to love the arena and have it at its heart, and they started there and they'll end there. Hopefully they'll go on to St James's Park and stadiums. So our naming rights partners lounge is going to be rebranded as the Live Since '95 lounge powered by Utilita, and what we are delivering in that lounge is an artist-led offering. So we will be paying a grassroots artist, local, from Newcastle, every show that represents the same genre of the show that is being played. We are paying a fee where they make money to do the gig, because it's come out that actually supporting and start-up artists, it actually costs them to go to work, which we think is a bit horrendous. So we're paying them a going rate and a reasonable rate where they will profit from playing in the lounge. We are providing them a dressing room, and it's being built right now, and it will be decked out as our other dressing rooms. They'll receive plaques and sign walls and make sure that they're part of our journey there, and hopefully we'll see them on the main stage.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because it's showing the added value not only from the customer side but also from the artists. They're still coming to your venue, they're still performing, they need to have that experience too.
Yeah, no, I think our fans aren't daft. You know, we can't just slap 50 quid on a ticket and call it premium. You know, and they're expecting not just more from the experience itself, they're expecting us to do more in their community. And, you know, if we want to be at the heart of music and our regions, and you know, Taylor Swift does it everywhere she goes. You know, she donated to the food banks in every city that she played. You know, we have to be we have to be part of the journey in our communities, and we have to be doing good there, as well as commercially driving revenue.
Lovely. Harry, is there a project that you quite like at the moment?
I think surprisingly, with no technology, 93rd Club at the O2, I just think it's stunning. Last time I went up there and I did a little tour, obviously to Frictionless first and then up to there. Just changing that narrative over premium is just all about your seats. It's about that whole experience that you have up there. But no tech, surprisingly.
James, for you?
Yeah, as boring as it sounds, I'm going to have to go with Harry on that one. So on the 93rd, I think one of the best things about that is the retractable walkway that they've got on that. And back when I was at the O2 and we were coming up with the concepts of it, we sat down with the designers. They said to us, "What is something that the O2 can do and no one else can do?" And then they put that forward, and everyone was sort of taken aback by that. As the CFO at the time hated it. He was like, "How many extra members of staff are you going to need? Where's the revenue generation for someone walking out onto a platform, taking a selfie, and then walking back?" And the answer was, well, no, you can't actually quantify any of it. But actually, that's the fairy dust that you're sprinkling on this product that makes it into a world-class product that everyone talks about. So
I think that's why you see the power of social media, right? Because although you can't quantify, like you say, the gain from it, when you start seeing that picture on social media, and I want to go there, I want to see that, I want to do that. So it's not gaining probably in profits that way, but obviously the social media side of it, you're gaining traction all the time. Lisa, yourself?
I think probably one of the best examples I've seen of a transforming space recently is the Mez at the AO Arena in Manchester. It used to be a large event store. Now it's a super high-end restaurant bar with, again, off-manifest seats. And the whole experience from start to finish is just unreal. It's got Michelin star chefs. You can be in the bar. There's DJs. It feels like you're in the best nightclub, in the UK. It's just got a really, really special feeling. I think we saw some images earlier from John's presentation, and it's just such a creative use of space, and I think it's just game-changing for arenas to have that kind of high-end, high-street facility right in the heart of live music.
Lovely. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the panel. I think it's been very interesting with such a diverse team up here. So if you have got any quick questions, please do let us know. Anyone down there? No? I think we're getting a little bit sleepy now. All right then, guys. Thank you very much for your panel.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
I think everyone was so astounded with all the different projects and everything that was going on. And I noticed as well, thank you, we obviously all got the memo today that the ladies were going to wear green. So